I used to think rock bottom was just a phrase people threw around to sound dramatic. Turns out, rock bottom has layers, and I managed to hit every single one of them. By the time I was 25, I wasn't living anymore. I was drifting. No degree, no job history worth mentioning, no savings, just a string of bad choices, half-finished rehabs, and the kind of friendships that existed only until the drugs ran out. I slept where I could, on someone's torn couch, in a shelter when there was space, on cold linoleum floors of abandoned houses when there wasn't. Most nights, my stomach ached so badly from hunger that I couldn't tell if I was alive or just pretending. So when I got an email titled, "Dinner Invitation, $50,000 compensation," I thought it was a scam. I almost deleted it, but desperation makes fools of all of us. And I was a fool with nothing left to lose. The sender's address was strange. SK Solutions Firm. Not Gmail. Not Outlook. Some domain I had never seen before. The message itself was short, written in plain, professional English. "Dear guest, you are invited to join me for a single evening meal. This is not a romantic offer. You will be compensated $50,000 upon completion, provided the following rules are followed. Stay until I pay the bill and escort you out. Do not pay for anything yourself. Wear formal attire. A suit will be provided at the entrance if you do not own one. Any breach will void all compensation. Reply accept to confirm." That was it. No threats. No begging for my credit card. Just rules. For 10 minutes, I stared at the screen. The rational part of me screamed that this was insane. But then again, the rational part of me had never helped me survive. $50,000. That was more than I had ever touched in my entire life. I typed back one word. Accept. Seconds later, a reply came. Monday, 6 p.m. Address attached. Questions may be asked at dinner. Should have scared me more. But instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. A stupid, dangerous kind of hope, but hope nonetheless. The next few days dragged by in a haze. I didn't own a suit, didn't even own clothes without stains. The best I had was a wrinkled white shirt and gray pants that smelled faintly of mildew. But when Monday arrived, I put them on anyway. The address led me to a restaurant I had never noticed before, tucked away between a shuttered bank and a boarded-up salon. From the outside, it looked ordinary. A glass door, frosted windows, no sign of life. Inside, though, that was different. The moment I walked in, a man in a perfectly pressed vest handed me a garment bag without saying a word. Inside was a black suit, tailored, my size exactly. The fit was so perfect it felt invasive, as though someone had measured me in my sleep. When I stepped out of the bathroom wearing it, I almost didn't recognize myself in the mirror. I looked like a man who belonged somewhere, a man with a future. But the illusion cracked as soon as I entered the dining hall. At first glance, it was warm and inviting. Golden lights pooled across white tablecloths. Paintings of abstract landscapes hung neatly on the walls. Soft jazz drifted lazily through the air. But something was off. When I entered, I swore I saw at least half a dozen people chatting, laughing, eating. By the time I looked again, the room was nearly empty. Only a few staff lingered, moving silently, like stagehands in a play. And in the center of the room, at a corner table, sat a man in a black suit identical to mine. I recognized him instantly. His was the only face I'd found when I Googled SK Solutions. The branch manager. He didn't stand to greet me. He just raised a thin hand and gestured to the chair across from him. "Thank you for coming," he said softly when I sat down. His voice was calm, almost too calm, the kind of voice you'd expect from a therapist or a priest. $50,000 for dinner, I said, trying to keep my tone light. Sounds too good to be true. He smiled faintly, but his eyes never blinked. Everything of value costs something, he said. Tonight, it is honesty. I didn't know what he meant, but as the first course arrived, steaming and fragrant, a strange calm washed over me. Maybe this was real. Maybe I had stumbled into the one miracle life had ever decided to hand me. Or maybe I was already in over my head. The first plate arrived without a sound. A waitress, if you could even call her that, slid it in front of me and vanished before I could say thank you. It was a single scallop, seared golden, sitting in the middle of a porcelain dish like a jewel in a ring box. A streak of red pepper sauce curled beneath it like a wound. I glanced at the man across from me, Shepard, as the email had signed off. "What's this supposed to be?" I asked. He folded his hands together, pale against the dark cloth of his sleeves. "What is something you regret most in your life?" The question landed so suddenly I almost laughed. "I thought this was dinner, not therapy." His gaze didn't waver. The silence stretched long enough that I felt myself crack. "I stole from my mom when she was sick, dying actually. She gave me money for medicine, and I spent it on a fix instead." The words hung in the air like smoke. Shepard nodded, slow, deliberate. "Eat." I cut into the scallop. Its flesh was tender, almost melting. But as soon as the sauce touched my tongue, heat flared across my mouth. Not unbearable, but sharp enough to sting. The guilt came rushing back with it. Every bite was a reminder, like the dish had been cooked from my own memory. When I looked up, Shepard's expression hadn't changed, but his eyes had grown softer, almost sad. "Regret is a heavy chain," he murmured. "And yet, confession lightens it. You've carried this weight for years. Tonight, you set it down." Before I could reply, another course appeared. This time, it was a hollowed apple, filled with creamy soup. The smell of sage and butternut drifted upward, wrapping me in warmth. "What's the kindest thing you've ever done?" Shepard asked, tilting his head as though he genuinely wanted to know. I blinked. Of all the things he could have asked, kindness was not what I expected. "There was this kid," I said slowly, "homeless, younger than me. One winter night, I let him sleep in my car, locked the doors, sat awake till morning in case someone bothered him. Didn't even ask his name, just let him have a place." Shepard's lips curved, not into a smile, exactly, but into something gentler than before. "Eat," he said. The soup was smooth, sweet, and comforting. The apple's rim cracked beneath the spoon, crisp against the creamy broth. Tasted like safety, like a memory I didn't realize I missed. When I looked up again, Shepard seemed different. His left eye glimmered brighter, the lines in his face less pronounced. Was I imagining it, or was he literally changing before me? The next question came sharper. "What is the worst lie you've ever told?" I froze. Some lies are harmless. Some are survival. But one lie had eaten at me for years. "My friend overdosed," I said, my throat tight. I could have saved him. He was still breathing. But I froze. I just stood there. When the cops came, I told them he was already gone. For the first time, Shepard leaned forward, his gaze boring into mine. There was no judgment, only an endless patience that felt heavier than condemnation. Another plate appeared, this one a single translucent dumpling. Its wrapper glistened, fragile, like it might dissolve under the weight of my shame. I bit into it, and broth gushed out. Fiery, smoky, searing my tongue. It felt like punishment, like a wound reopening. The burn of a secret I thought I'd buried forever. When I set my chopsticks down, Shepard stood. "I'll be back," he said softly and walked away. The moment he left, the room shifted. The wallpaper behind the bar bubbled faintly, as though heat pressed against it from inside. The jazz music slowed, every note dragging too long, like a tape running out of battery. The waitstaff moved less like people and more like puppets pulled by invisible strings. And worst of all, every single one of their faces looked almost like Shepard's. The bartender's eye bulged unnaturally. The hostess's smile sagged like melting wax. Each reflection of him was distorted, degraded, like photocopies of the same face crumbling with every reproduction. When Shepard returned, he looked altered too. One side of his face seemed younger, firmer. The other sagged, older than before, a grotesque split of vitality and decay. He sat down calmly, as if nothing had changed. "What memory do you miss the most?" he asked quietly. The question broke me in a way the others hadn't. "Swimming in Lake Michigan," I whispered. When I was a kid, with my friends, we'd throw ourselves off docks, scream about sea monsters, eat soggy sandwiches. It was dumb, but it felt safe, like I didn't owe the world anything yet. For the first time, Shepard's expression cracked. One eye shimmered with a tear. The other side of his face remained hollow, lifeless. The air in the room tightened around us. The lights above pulsed faintly. Something unseen was leaning closer.